Hello, and welcome back to Yapology 101. This is episode 8, and I was requested to do a podcast episode about fashion and style and how to find your style by a mutual of mine. However, I might have to delay that topic for a couple of episodes because today I had something that was a little bit more pressing on my mind and soul, and that I felt that I needed to talk about. I've been thinking about this all day. And what caused me to think about this was a comment that I received on TikTok. And when I get comments like this, I try not to torture myself over it, but I also can acknowledge that it's helpful for me. I can turn this into a podcast episode or a TikTok. It gets my gears turning and it's beneficial for me, no matter how it makes me feel. But this particular comment was left underneath a product review I had done. Now, I'm fairly new. I haven't gotten the opportunity to do many product reviews or advertisements, and this was pretty much my first time doing so. But it was from one of my it was from one of my followers, actually. Basically, calling me out for being a fake anti-capitalist, and that they were disappointed because they thought I was alternative. And what confused me about this comment was, what does that mean? What makes me less anti-capitalist? Because if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't matter how anti-capitalist your views are. We're all living under capitalism. We all have to get a job one way or another. In order to survive, we must make money. And I've started to think about the way in which we value how someone makes money, and the way that we actually put these ways of making money under capitalism, which we must all do, almost in competition with each other. I did internalize this comment and I projected a bit because it almost read to me as if all the work that I had done previously, working several minimum wage jobs for years and years, and it was pouring nothing into my soul and doing nothing for me except for sustaining me with a bi-weekly paycheck. But now that I'm doing something that actually is important to me and I'm successful with it and it's helping me be able to not work those jobs that were sucking the soul out of me, all of a sudden it almost feels like I'm being framed as a bad person or that this is somehow a moral failure. And I started to think about how people who identify as anti-capitalist will say these things, will say, oh no, now you have to get a job. But it's confusing because if you are so anti-capitalist, why do you value jobs just that much? What makes you value employment? What makes you value work? And why is the only work that is valued the work that you do for someone who doesn't care about you? At least when I'm working for myself, I'm working for myself. When I was working all of those horrible minimum wage jobs, I was working for a huge corporation who didn't care about me, about my life, about my coworkers' lives, who don't care about the working class. But the moment that someone decides to leave that system and try and do it themselves, become their own boss, without any exploitation of others, simply just relying on their own strengths, they're seen as a bad person. This really got me thinking about what types of work and feeding into capitalism is accepted by the general public. And I've noticed this a lot with people who post online. They will post things that they care about, and then they'll do an ad read or a brand deal. And then people will act as if this is a moral failure, when in reality, it's just a part of the job. It's simply a part of the job. And why are content creators criticized for doing their job simply because they're not working for someone else? How is that a bad thing? How isn't that a good thing? And I did take it very personally because I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I wasn't afforded the same opportunities as other people that maybe had more than me. I always wanted to do the things that they did. I wanted to decorate my room however I wanted, dress however I wanted, go to concerts, go to events, enjoy myself, enjoy my youth. But my youth has pretty much been preoccupied by going to work 40 hours a week at a horrible job where I was mistreated and paid pennies. But somehow that has more value to other people when I'm miserable and I'm working for someone else for nothing, slaving my body away. And another thing is, my body went through severe damage when I was working these jobs. It's not sustainable for my life. So why should I be punished for not wanting to do that to myself anymore? For realizing I do have the option to work for myself if I so want to, and if I'm actually committed and I put in the work and the effort. But I think it's simply easier for people to target those who put themselves out there to be seen by the public, because a part of the job is also being judged and perceived by the public. That's a part of the job that is not a part of working minimum wage. Now, while you do have to deal with the public and their perceptions and their abuse when you work minimum wage, you're not gaining anything. You're not gaining a thing. All I was dealing with was being berated by people, being paid nothing, having to almost lick their asses so that they don't yell at me or threaten to hurt me. And in this way, I still have to deal with that, but it's different because I'm working for myself. I just don't understand why people value this type of work over this type of work. At the end of the day, we're all working under capitalism. It's kind of a system that we can't escape. It doesn't matter how radical your ideas are. You're still clocking in somewhere. And it doesn't make you any more superior to anyone else if you work for the man versus yourself. You know what I mean? I genuinely have been perplexed all day because I don't know what that means. All I can say is, when I was working minimum wage, nobody was complaining. I was suffering and I was miserable. And I was not fulfilling my goals or my dreams in life. I was not even pursuing them. I was abandoning myself every day to work for someone else because I felt like I had no other option. And nobody was complaining then. Nobody had anything bad to say. But the moment that I want to do something for myself, the moment that I want to dig myself out of this hole of poverty and struggle, somehow someone has something bad to say. Someone has something almost to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing by doing something for myself. And I think this is a very twisted way that we think in our current society. We think in this way that being your own boss, doing something for yourself, that's irrehensible. That's the worst thing that you could do. And I don't mean to offend the working class because, once again, I've been the working class for the majority of my life. And I technically still am because I'm being paid less than I was at Walmart working for myself. I just didn't want to be a wage slave for anyone but myself. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's a thing that takes a lot of courage, a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of audacity to believe you're even going to be able to survive off of that without, getting another job. But I've dedicated myself to this as my one and only thing because I believe in it just that much. So I wonder why people who believe in themselves are punished so severely in the society. Why is it that way? Why can't you want to have better? Why can't you want better? Why is it a problem as soon as you want better? That's what I'm having trouble understanding. And it seems like the people who already have these things, they're born with a golden spoon in their mouth, let's say. No one ever says anything about them. Nobody ever complains about their vacations or their concert excursions or their constant entertainment and consumerism. Nobody really cares. But the moment that you might want something similar for yourself and to build it on your own, then it's a problem. I don't know why that is. And I could say that maybe it's because people are miserable. They're miserable working those jobs, still working those jobs. They see that you're not anymore, and they want you back there with them. They want to feel allegiance with you, even in misery. But almost never in, celebration. Why don't you want to celebrate with me? Why do you just want to bring me down to your level? Why do I have to work at Walmart for you to respect me? Why? It's almost ludicrous to think that this is an anti-capitalist take these days. Oh, you should be getting a job. You should be working for someone else. Or you're a bad person. Working for yourself makes you a capitalist swine. Pardon me, but I'm no Jeff Bezos. I'm no Elon Musk. And what's funny is these people are probably getting fatter paychecks than me, doing something that they hate. It just really confused me. It just perplexed me. Because once again, not everyone is going to support you. That's another thing. And that's fair. That's life. But what I don't understand is this collective need to drag everyone down to your level. To say, you don't deserve that life you think you deserve. You deserve the one that I'm living. And if you don't think that you deserve the one that I'm living, if you think that you deserve better, you're a bad person. You're inherently a bad person. You're selfish. As if there's anything wrong with being selfish. I really do hate this mindset of you can't be selfish. You can't be selfish. You can never be selfish. But the thing that selfishness does for an individual is it protects them from people like that. When you're not giving yourself away to every other person, every other miserable person, you have more time for yourself, and that makes you selfish. You're able to trust yourself, lean on yourself, and that makes you selfish? As if that's a bad thing. I can't acknowledge that sometimes being selfish is a bad thing. Sometimes you hurt the people you love by being selfish. But I think we need to maybe change our definition of what is selfish and what is just simply rational. What is self-love versus what is selfish? Because I don't think I would be loving myself if I had forced myself to continue working at Walmart or Racetrack or the shitty hair salon or however many thousands of other places I've had to work to keep myself afloat. I don't think that would make me love myself anymore. I actually knew how much suffering I was enduring every single day. I genuinely wanted to die. And we would rather want people to die than want people to live for a brighter future. Because when you're working these jobs, there's really no hope for a brighter future. It's kind of an end-of-the-road job. It's the kind of job that your parents hope and pray you never have to endure. It's the type of job that makes people tell you to go to college. But then again, I wouldn't want to be working for a corporate job either. I don't want to work for any sort of corporation. And I don't see how that makes me a bad person. I don't see why working for yourself is so villainized. Because I'm not ashamed of wanting better for myself. I've always wanted better for myself. And the times where I deprived myself of that wanting better, I hated my life and I wanted to die and I thought there was no out. And I was close to ending it all. And is that what you'd rather see people endure than maybe some sort of version of happiness? Because let's be real. I know that you guys have definitely worked these jobs. You know that they don't make you happy. They don't fulfill you. You can't use your strengths. You can't use your skills in these jobs. They're not wanted and they're not appreciated. Why would I continue working somewhere where I'm not appreciated and not wanted, not valued, seen as a statistic, seen as a number, instead of working for something I care about. Working incredibly hard, by the way, at something that I genuinely care about, at something that I'm good at. Why would I deprive myself of that? Why? So that I can be seen as a good person by people working at Walmart? So I can be seen as more relatable to people working at a gas station? And while there's nothing wrong with being a worker, once again, I've been a worker most of my life. I've wasted my 20s working for someone who doesn't care about me, enduring abuse and bullying at the hands of my coworkers and managers, wanting to die, not having time to take care of myself, not having the energy to follow my passions. For what? At the end of the day and at the end of the road, there was nothing waiting for me. There was no reward for that. There's genuinely no reward for that. So if you're a person who wants better for themselves, knows that they have strengths that will not be appreciated in those environments, know that you can go after something, go after a real dream, but you're scared of being seen as a person with no morals in doing so, with no shame, which, by the way, why should you have shame? I implore you to go after it anyways. Because the most anti-capitalist thing that you can do is refuse to participate for someone else. And another thing is, we can have all these anti-capitalist ideas. It's a good thing. We should be fighting towards this. But you shouldn't be shaming anyone for their unwilling participation in capitalism. We all have to stay alive. So what are people to do when they don't agree with capitalism but are forced to live in this system that none of us can escape? What are people to do? Should they kill themselves? What should they do? Should they go to jail for burning down a corporate building? What really should they do? Can you give us, for all the anti-capitalist revolutionists, quote unquote, that spend their whole day on TikTok, leaving comments on a phone made by abused children in Africa, dying in mines. Can you please tell me, what shall we do? Put your ideas down in the comments. I'd really love to know how we can individually end capitalism with no collective effort. I'm getting pretty sick of these, and I will say it, simply online activists that are trying to fulfill some sort of superiority complex that they have, who don't do any of the work, don't care about their community. They only care about what an influencer does or a content creator does. Oh, I don't like her. She made a video about moisturizer. I think she should die. What am I doing? I'm just in my room. My mommy and daddy just made me pancakes. I live in the suburbs. I've never protested a day in my life. Soup kitchen, what's that? You know? What is that? Like, what is that? But I do know how to leave 10 mean comments on people's videos. Because I'm not a capitalist swine like them. I'm a loser who sits in my room and does nothing all day. Just go on TikTok. That's activism. It's just baffling because it's like, dude, get up and make a zine or something, you know? Do something. Fuck. It's so crazy because you can participate in activism in so many ways. But I promise you, leaving TikTok comments is really, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. It's the same thing. And these people are the people that be like, well, if you're posting an infographic on your story, then what are you doing? More than you. Unfortunately, more than you. I would love to see these people actually organize. Try and be active. Vote. Instead of talking about, well, both sides are bad and I'm a revolutionist and I'm an anarchist, so I don't care. And we should be but it's like, do you really think that spreading vitriol online is going to change anything? I just really don't understand this thought process. You're doing something for yourself. I don't like that. I don't do anything for myself. I wear spiky jeans. Congratulations on your spiky jeans. Congratulations on your patches. You're doing nothing. I would really, really actually love to see some real activism. Some real activism. I'd love to see it. But these people seemingly are not participating in it. If you have enough time to leave these comments on TikTok, you're probably not doing the activism. Activism is seemingly a full-time job. So
you're spouting that shit, just shut the fuck up.
You need to shut up. It's literally like you need to actually shut up. And not just because you're hurting my feelings, because I genuinely want better for you. If you're seeing someone doing something good for themselves and that's what you have to say, then you must be in a very miserable point of your life. You must be in severe, genuine misery. And as much as it makes me angry, it also makes me sad. There are so many people just sitting in their rooms, raging with a little device this close to their face. They don't have any hobbies. They don't have any passions. They don't have that burning feeling in their gut that they need to do something that's important to them. And then, I don't know. I've never been a person who looked down upon people who had a passion. I can't relate to it, and it's a perspective I can't really understand. I don't think I've ever existed in that level of misery, no matter how miserable my life has been. No matter how many times my dad has punched me in the face and knocked me out. No matter how many times my stepdad has run us out of the house and spit on us. And no matter how many times my mom has slapped me in the face and called me a whore and a bitch. You know, there are so many things that I've been through in my life that have not pushed me over the edge of misery in that way. Instead, those things genuinely pushed me towards, hey, this is my life. I need to do something with it. I need to be happy in my own way. And I wish more people would do that. I wish more people would be able to find that within themselves, that drive, that need, that hunger, that passion. Because it makes me wonder, what is your passion? Is your passion working at Zoomies? Is that your passion? Probably not. It's not my passion either. But there are two types of people. People who complain about the circumstances not being good enough to be passionate. And then there are people who do it despite the circumstances. It's just a very weird, insidious cycle of crap that we do to each other, every single day. We tell people to stay in their place. We tell people who are born in poverty, stay in your place. Don't try and achieve better. Actually, the circumstances are against you. There's no way it could happen. When that's not necessarily true. We're just scared of being alone in our own misery. At least some of you are. I'm definitely not. I think the cruelest thing that you can do is pull somebody into your misery. I think that's very cruel. And I've experienced this a whole ton in my life with friends, and mostly friends and family, where they know that I have hope and that I have faith, and that no matter how delusional it seems due to whatever circumstances that I've been born into, I know I could still do it. I know if there's a will, there's a way, and that's one of the truest cliches out there. If there is a will, there is a way. But a lot of you just don't have the will. So you'd rather project onto someone who has the will and know there is a way, because you want them to believe there isn't a way, because that's what you believe. But it's not what everyone should believe, and I don't think it's what the majority of people should believe. I mean, sure, that means there's a lot less competition for me. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily make me happy. No, it doesn't. It makes me sad. It makes me sad that the majority of you would rather identify with your circumstances in such a way that you can never escape them. You don't have to do that. I see so many people. Well, life is miserable for me because my leg broken. Life is miserable for me because I poor. Life is miserable for me because I ugly. Life is miserable for me because me no have friends. Life is miserable for me because me no have romantic relationship. And it's like, you're choosing the misery. I'm so sorry to tell you, even in a miserable system, misery is a choice. Misery is a choice. Because this is what I've noticed as well, moving to the West after growing up in the Eastern world. People aren't living in such misery, even in the worst circumstances. They're happy. They're happy despite their circumstances because they know that is no way to live. I feel like there's this tendency in the West to constantly complain as if that's going to do anything or change anything. In all actuality, it probably won't change anything. If you want to change something, you have to get up and change it. Do you think, let's take Malcolm X as an example. Do you think he just sat around complaining all day? He was actually doing shit. That's what activism is. He was doing shit. He was saying shit in front of the people who he wanted to bring down. He wasn't afraid. But a lot of you who think you're activists are cowards. You're cowards. You never leave your room because you have social anxiety. But you know what I mean? You're not doing anything. You're too scared to do anything. And it's not just with activism, it's with everything. It's like you need permission from everyone else to do something before you think it's worthy of being done. Do you think any great people, any notable people in history were like, hey, John, do you think I should do this thing? I don't know if I should do it. I don't know if I should. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I don't think I'm worth it. What do you think, John? And then their friend John was like, man, I don't give a fuck if you do it or not. You have to give a fuck. They were like, well, I guess you're right, but I'm not going to do it anyways. That has to be 90% of people. No, seriously, it has to be 90% of people. Because the amount of people that I've tried to encourage throughout my life, it almost makes me want to give up on encouraging people. You can tell someone that they're worthy over and over and over again. The only person that has to believe it is them for it to work out for them. You can't, it's the same thing as drug addicts. You can't be like, hey, buddy, can you stop doing crack? I care about you. They're going to be like, hell no. The only way that they're going to stop doing crack if they're like, man, crack is ruining my life and I really want to quit. I think I'm going to try and quit crack. It's all individual choice. And I feel like a lot of people almost seem like they believe that free will doesn't exist at all. And while it's debatable as to if free will completely is a thing that we can choose, obviously we can kind of choose free will. And the thing is, what you're not realizing is you are choosing free will every day, but you're choosing wrong. These are your two options. Be miserable. Don't be miserable. That is a choice. You're making that choice every day. Even if it's subconscious, you're making a choice to stay in that, to wallow in that, and then to complain about it, the consequences of your own actions, and then to try and make other people miserable because you can't deal with the fact that your misery is self-imposed. And I've been this person before. Absolutely. Yes. I've been this person many a time. But what I had to realize is it was a pathetic behavior. It was pathetic behavior. It was the behavior of a worm wriggling around in the dirt. I didn't want to be a worm anymore. So I decided to fucking grow legs. Because I'm not a fucking worm. I'm a human being. I can move. If I wanted to right now, despite the consequences, I could go out in the dead of the night and walk 20 miles to no destination simply because I chose to do so. So why can't you choose to change your perspective? Why can't you do that? Another thing, I think a lot of people think this is demeaning, but if I did it, why can't you do it? I was the most pessimistic, miserable bitch on planet Earth for a very long time. I was very cup half full or half empty? Half empty. Because that's the pessimist. Now I'm an optimist. So now I'm thinking it's half full. Because it's not that hard. It's actually not that hard to become an optimist. You're just over-identifying with your pessimistic traits because you've built a belief that you are a pessimist. None of it is real. What you have to realize is it's not actually real. It's all in your head. And I've been seeing a lot of posts. Oh, it's so demeaning when people say it's all in your head. It's not that easy to change that. It is that easy. It is all in your head. It's a conscious choice. You can decide where your energy goes. You can decide where your perspective shifts. If it ever shifts, you get to make that choice. And by pretending like you don't get to make that choice, all you're doing is trying to evade taking accountability for yourself. And I think that word has almost become a bad word. Taking accountability means that you're looking down on yourself. But that's not it. If we don't take accountability for our choices in our everyday lives, we will create a life that we hate. You're not going to get in trouble for taking accountability for yourself, with yourself. It's about how you approach taking accountability. Like, for me, I was very miserable for many years. And I kept telling myself, well, this is just how I am. This is how my life is going to be. I'm a sad person. I've always been a sad person. I've always been a person that bad things happen to. I have bad luck. Until I decided I didn't. And then I no longer did. Because the idea that your thoughts do create your reality is pretty accurate. It's pretty overused, but it's pretty accurate. My day usually goes better when I'm not thinking that it's going to go wrong. You know, my day goes wrong when I'm thinking that everything is wrong. Sometimes you have to have the courage and the bravery to pull yourself out of your mind, to pull yourself out of the negative feedback loop that's happening in your mind. All it is courage. Changing your perspective, all it takes is courage. It doesn't take a 20-step guide. It doesn't take a spiritual coach. It doesn't take any of that. It just takes courage. That's all it takes. And people have their excuses. Excuses upon excuses as why they cannot change the way they think about themselves or their life. But at the end of the day, all it is an excuse. And whether it be that suffering makes you a better person, or you don't know who you are outside of suffering, both things are an excuse that are based on nothing real, completely based on bullshit. So do you want to live your life based on bullshit, or based on something meaningful, based on something helpful, based on something that can actually help you succeed and progress in the things that you want to do? And it's not simply about capitalism, but pardon me if I say that, yes, I want to make money. Because money is freedom. And while we can definitely criticize people like Jeff Bezos and the 1%, the very top 1%, who are taking advantage and exploiting people's labor, I don't think people who simply want money because money equals freedom are those people. I don't think they are. I'm not thinking, who can I exploit to get this money? You know what I'm thinking? How hard can I work to get this money? And a lot of people say that this is a fallacy, that under capitalism, they trick you and say that all you have to do is work hard, but it's working for me. Working hard and taking the opportunities when they come to me, that's working for me. It's working. And while I'm not at the financial point that I want to be, I mean, I'm barely making any money doing this, barely keeping afloat, trying my best, I know that consistency works out and real progress takes time. So I'm allowing that to be any time in the future when I make that money I want to make, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't want to make money. That I am akin to a library. I'm not being funded by tax dollars. I actually have to pay taxes, just like everyone else, simply because I'm in the public eye, putting myself out there, doesn't mean that I'm Mr. Beast. Doesn't mean that I'm taking advantage of tax loopholes and taking out loans from the bank. That's not me. I do think that I'm proud of myself because for the first time in my life, I'm making money purely by myself, for myself. I'm not relying on the man to stuff my pockets with barely anything. I don't rely on that. I don't need that. I completely believe in myself to get those results that I want. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not putting little children to work in factories. I'm simply making videos, tirelessly editing and keeping it on my mind 24/7 because I know that it will work out if I keep going. I have the self-belief that everything will go accordingly or how it's supposed to go. Because once again, sometimes it's in fate's hand. But who am I to spit in fate's hand? I just think that there's nothing wrong with wanting to support yourself instead of working tirelessly for someone who does not care about you. I don't think that makes you a better person. I think that the working class is literally the foundation of this country as they built it to be. And I respect working class individuals because I've been there and I've done that. And it's fucking hard. But at some point, I had to realize that this wasn't the life I wanted. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think choosing the life that you genuinely want is a bad thing. I think a lot of people don't have the audacity to do so. Genuinely, I do think that not a lot of people have it in them. But that's not my problem. The only problem that I have is continuing to figure out how I'm going to make this work for me, for the people I love, to give them a life outside of the tireless working for a company that doesn't care about them, barely scraping by, barely able to buy groceries, barely able to stay afloat. Why would I put the people close to me through that when I can change their lives forever and my own? How is it more noble to let the people you love and yourself live in poverty until the end of time? How is that noble again? How is that helpful again? So no, that's not the life that I want to live. It's the life that a lot of people will live, but I've chosen not to because I know that it's a choice. You can make that choice. And I wish more people would. I would love to see people genuinely flourishing, enjoying their lives, being able to do things. I would love to see that. I would love to see so many people escape basically, I mean, I know it's still the rat race, but it's a different type of rat race when you're down there, when you're low income. That shit is hell. I wasn't even able to go to the doctor for years. I would have to go to the emergency room because I couldn't afford to go to the fucking urgent care. I couldn't afford to have a primary care doctor. I had to get my tooth removed instead of a root canal because I didn't have the funds. And I'm sorry, but that's not the life I want to live. I don't want a health crisis to be the end of my life. I don't think people who don't want to experience that should be taking the shame. I think it's the people who set up the system that should be taking the shame and the blame. I didn't set up the system. I'm simply a part of it, as we all are, because we have no choice. And I think it's really unfair to judge people about how they go about that system. You know what I mean? And that also brings me to another point. To survive in circumstances like this, you're not always going to choose whatever is the goodest thing to do. For instance, in genocide, people will often have to do horrible things to survive because of the nature of what genocide is. They have to lie, they have to cheat, they have to steal. Are you going to tell them that they didn't deserve to survive based off of that? That they shouldn't have survived, they should have died instead? They should have let their families die? You know? So I think maybe it's time that we leave our moral superiority at the door when it's necessary. Because I don't think you're a better person than me for working at McDonald's, which I've worked at too. McDonald's gang forever. But I also don't think you're a worse person than me. I just think we've chosen different paths. I just think we ended up in different situations. And while I enjoyed some of my time working minimum wage, maybe 5% at each job, I knew that wasn't the life I wanted to live. And I'm not going to apologize for not wanting to live that life. So that's it about that. I just wish that we all had the awareness to understand who's actually benefiting from a system like this. You know? It's even to the point where it seems like we take it out on celebrities. And I know celebrity worship is dumb. We shouldn't be celebrating celebrities to such a point. But at the same time, they're just a part of the system as we are. They had a dream, they had a goal, and you act accordingly in the system that you're in. You got to do what you got to do. And I'm never going to shame anyone for doing what they got to do. But it's just a shame that we never actually seem to target the real culprits of this. The people who are really making this world a terrible place for the average person to live in. We're spreading our energies in places that make no sense, that are going to make zero change in doing so. When is the next time someone's going to show up on Elon Musk's doorstep? How about Peter Thiel? There are so many people making this world an awful, terrible place. Maybe we should be focusing our efforts on those people. Maybe we should be focusing our efforts on the CEO of Walmart. You remember, what's his name? Walter? Is that his name? I don't know. All I remember is when I was working at Walmart and I would clock in and see his face smiling at the wall, smiling at me thinking, ha ha ha. You're just one of the millions of people working for me, slaving away for me, and you're being treated like shit, and you hate your life. But remember to smile. So I guess I'm not sorry for not wanting to experience that ever again. And I think I've started to understand entrepreneurship a lot more after experiencing that, after realizing, wait, entrepreneurship is actually a way out. It's a genuine way out. So that's why I'll never knock an entrepreneur. That's why I will always look up to them. I mean, there are some worse than others, but I don't think that we can generalize in a system that's built to force people to do things that are not 100% morally sound. It's all a bunch of noise, and I think we're focusing on the noise, which is exactly what they want us to do. They don't want us to call out their behavior. They want us to always be against each other. Class war. And what's funny is I'm in the same class as anyone working at Walmart. So it's just interesting. It's an interesting perspective that I can't quite wrap my head around. But I guess what I wanted to say is none of us are better or worse than each other. We're just navigating a capitalist system in the way that we see fit. And maybe if you want to be an activist, go and be one. A real one. But I think that's where I'm going to be ending off today's episode of Yapology 101. A little bit of a rant, but it needed to be said because it was diseasing my brain. Literally could not stop thinking about it. And I think it's important to be open and vulnerable on here with you guys. Like, not bullshit. I don't want to be that person that's like, I don't care about money. I don't care about succeeding. I'm doing this for no reason, actually. You know, I feel like that's a really played out act. And that's not who I am. I'm obviously doing this so I can get to a point where I'm comfortable. Doing something that I love is going to help me become comfortable and live a life where I'm not worrying about if my teeth are going to fall out of my mouth and I'm not going to be able to fix it. You know, I don't want to live in agony. And if doing something that I genuinely care about is going to help me not live in agony, sign me the fuck up. But I guess that's the end of it. I wanted to be open and transparent with you guys because I'm never going to lie about who I am. And I'm going to keep reviewing skincare from time to time. You know, and also, speaking of, here is a plug. These contact lenses I'm wearing are by Pinky Paradise. These are by Pinky Paradise, my favorite lens brand, which I actually, fun fact, I had to save paychecks for months to be able to afford these back when I was working. And now I've got a sponsorship with them. So I would say that's a win. And if you want some contact lenses, well, circle lenses, I suppose, I do have a code, MOMOPILL10. If you want to use it, I think you get 10% off. And I'm not ashamed by saying that. But anyways, thank you for watching this episode of Yapology 101. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for all the love. Like, subscribe, and comment. And I would like to tell you that I have a very special guest coming to Yapology 101 sometime soon. And I'm very, very excited about it. And it's someone that you all probably know. But that's the end of it. And I'll see you next Sunday.